Yo, what's going on, everyone? In the next hour, we're going to do an interview with Anna Högberg Jenelius.
Enough.
Anna, Anna Anna's going to tell me just how badly I screwed up that name. But we're also going to get into Anna's past, how Anna got into the industry, and all about the brand new, beautiful game, KreatureKind. All that and more in the next hour. So stay tuned and lock in to the
Streamcast.
seamless. I've done this before. How are you doing, Anna?
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Hello and welcome everyone to the Streamcast, bringing people together since 2018 through the power of gaming, and we have use our platform not only to shine a positive light on Black representation, but also on indie creatives just telling their stories. And I feel like this is what my co-host Hassan says a lot. If you don't play indie games, you're doing yourself a disservice because it's the beauty of gaming that you remember from yesteryear without all of the trash of shareholders and having to churn out the same game every 3 years. So we are delighted and honored to have such a unique and special guest to talk about a game that is uniquely pretty. It's got great artwork and trade swords for words. I gotta get that right. In a very unique, wholesome game where you debate with enemies and even have the opportunity to win some over. But I've waffled for long enough. Anna, tell me a little bit about yourself.
All right, sure. Thank you for having me again. So in Swedish, you would say my name as Anna Högberg Jenelius, but I will accept any pronunciation because I realize it's not easy if you're not Swedish. But I've been in indie for, was it 10 years? Almost 10 years now. Yeah, this fall is going to be 10 years. And before that, I worked at Paradox. So I've been in the industry for almost 14 years. But I just love being an indie. I'm not very good at it. I realized I might not be the best game developer, but I'm probably the most stubborn because I just really love indie games. It's just what I want to do. So yeah, I've been at it for quite a while now. And I also, besides working on my own games, I also work with other indie companies as a consultant. So I've been sort of juggling that for the past handful of years while making my game KreatureKind, which is the latest game that I made.
Amazing. And I've just put a link in the chat right now. So whether you're watching live or on demand, you can check out KreatureKind on Steam, which I believe is on offer, 10%.
Yeah, right now it's 10% because we're celebrating the Summer Game Fest. So I wanted to there's a little bit extra there. We're in a bundle as well, in relation to Summer Game Fest. So pick that up if you want a good deal on some great games.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into KreatureKind. We're going to get all the way back into your past right now, Anna. Do you remember your first ever game and console?
I do. I don't really remember playing it for the first time because I was apparently 2 years old. There is photo evidence of this. But yeah, I was a little bit too young to even remember the first time I played a game. But I have two older brothers, so we got a Nintendo 8-bit and NES for Christmas. And we have like a video, like home video, where I'm like standing in front of the TV and like looking confused, like, what is this? Like, what? There's something going on TV I don't understand, but it's colorful and I like it. So I think my first game was Duck Hunt. It was probably Duck Hunt because the controller was a little bit easier to handle, the zapper, compared to an NES regular controller. So
Nice.
most likely my first game was Duck Hunt on the NES.
I love that. Proper gaming heritage. As I speak, our co-host is in the chat. What's going on, Hassan? This is the king of the indies. If it's an indie game, this guy knows all about it, and he's all about it. Look, KreatureKind is already in his wish list.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I won't lie. The other week, I was speaking to some colleagues, and I was talking about video game consoles. I was going, "Oh, the NES and the SNES," and one of them looked over to me and went, "What's a SNES?" And
Of the
It took
young
me a
ones.
while. Yeah. It reminds me of when I just read the tweet of someone going the save icon when someone held an actual floppy disk. It's not a save icon. It's a
Yeah.
real thing.
It is
We had-
real thing.
We used to have games on that.
Yeah. It was actually a sidebar, but I was at the Stockholm Comic Con this weekend and showed KreatureKind, and I hadn't realized how many kids do not know how to use a mouse, because we displayed it on PC, and like there was so like kids were literally like the mouse was lying on like the mouse pad the way you would normally hold it, and one was like turning it 180 degrees, and I tried to use it the wrong way around. Like, all right, we only use touchpads these days. Not until you actually see it. And some kids were like almost 10 years old or something. They could not use a PC.
Absolutely woeful.
That's where we're at now.
We're not quite as old as Hassan. He is an old man, but Stone and Chisel. That is crazy.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, I don't want to talk about not being young for too long, but like in schools, apparently they're taking down analog clocks because kids can't read them. That's such a weird concept to me. Just count.
Or just teach the kid that if they're in school, you teach them how to use an analog clock. That's what they're there for, right?
Crazy.
To learn stuff. But okay.
I can't lie, Anna. You're talking crazy out here. I don't. I know you're wild, but teaching kids in the school is kind of crazy to me.
I'm sorry, I'm coming here with my politics, radical.
I told you before we started recording, politics free zone.
Right, sorry about
that. From your first game, Duck Hunt on the classic legendary NES, what are your favorite games? Do you have a top 5?
Like I told you before we started recording, I was almost quite literally losing sleep over this. I had to write down my top 5, and there are so many games that could have made the list. But I decided to go for sort of the classics that have been with me for a long time, rather than because there are games I'm playing right now that are amazing, like Split Fiction or Helldivers 2 and so on. But I'm going for the ones that I'm that I'm going to bring with me to my grave, I think. So in 5th place, I'm going to say Age of Empires 2. It's one of those games that I grew up with. Just an amazing game. I can probably beat anyone still who is not a professional, a normal, common person who you would meet.
Anna's thrown down the gauntlet.
Sorry?
I said you've thrown down the gauntlet. That sounds like a challenge.
It has happened at parties that we actually found a computer in a corner and tried to have a makeshift long party just to prove who was best. But yeah. 4th place, I'm going to say Papers, Please, because I feel like that's one of those games, as an indie, that just came and, I want to say changed everything, but just prove what games can be, that games can be something completely different than what you would initially think. Such a great game, and the way that they tell a story, or he tells a story through the gameplay, is just, I don't know, it's amazing. Just stellar game. 3rd place, I had to go with The Last of Us, first game, also an excellent game, and I think they tell the story in a very different way from Papers, Please, obviously, but just, I cried. It's just very good story, and even though gameplay and narrative work in another way, there's still, there's some harmony between them that I think is really good. I don't feel like I feel like I'm kicking in open doors with my choices, but still. Second best game, I'm gonna say Portal 1. Also one of the best games in my opinion of all time. And I love that the game is essentially just a long tutorial. The tutorial is 90% of the game, and then the actual sort of game when you're not handheld anymore, that's just the final part of the game. And I think that's just so brilliant, and the humor obviously is so good. And I'm going to cheat for my number 1 because I'm going to say a series. I'm going to say the Baldur's Gate series because I grew up with Baldur's Gate 1. And it's what it used to be one of my favorite games of all time. And then Baldur's Gate 3 came out. Baldur's Gate 2 is not bad either, but it's not one of my favorites. Baldur's Gate 3 came out, and I was like, well, this is my life now. Now this is my personality for a couple of years. So it's hard not to put that in the first slot.
That's a solid list.
Thank you.
As actually, I think I can do this now, and hopefully comments will show up on the screen. If you're watching this or listening to this after the fact, sorry, check out our YouTube, youtube.com/streamcast. Hopefully these comments will show up on the screen. But I'll share what Hassan had to say. Very good list. Portal and Papers, please. I'm very interested. Portal, you said is 90% tutorial.
Yeah. Like, do you disagree or?
No. I'm trying to. How do I phrase this? How did you not get frustrated at all the hand holding?
I don't think it's hand holding, but like the whole time when you are in the lab, I feel like you're still learning new mechanics all the time, and like through each sort of task or each trial, you learn something new, learn a new way to interact with your environment, and you get progressively better. And I feel like when you go sort of backstage, that's when the game is like, oh, well, now you're not learning anything new anymore. Now prove to me what you have learned. Now put all of these skills to the test. So that's why I usually say that, like when I teach students so as well, like, what's the best tutorial? When we talk about it, and like, okay, my opinion is that Portal has the best tutorial of all time, because the whole game is almost a full tutorial, and you don't even notice because it's such a good game.
Okay, no, that's fair. That's fair. And your opinion is incredibly valid. I just want to know more, especially about games that I've not personally played. I feel like it's very enriching and educational, actually, to hear about all of these games. And that's why I love asking this question to all my guests, because everyone loves, Last of Us, right? But the unique games, I like hearing just as much. And I could talk forever about Last of Us, because I think that's one of the best games of all time. And there we go. The comments are showing up. When you mentioned you cried, I feel like most people did. You're kind of in the minority if you didn't cry playing that game.
Yeah.
I think that's just the beauty of video games, because that's a true art, in my opinion. There's not one correct way to produce a game.
No.
You could reach people, you can resonate with so many people using various methods, whether it's completely foregoing violence, whether it's going down a more cinematic route. There are so many ways to tell a story, and that's why this era is such an important one for video games.
I think so as well. Like, speaking to the whole thing, like, but with AAA is getting bigger and bigger, and they're struggling. Like, let's not hide that. And like, I think really this is going to be the age of indie, and I hope so, because I'm an indie and I love indie games in general. I think we're going to see so many cool games, and like the AAA, AA, whatever space is just going to keep. Just look at Expedition 33 and so on, like that sort of game, like the sort of mid-tier, really cool game, relatively small team. I think we're going to see more of that, and I hope we will, because I think we can look forward to a bright future, hopefully, of games, I think.
I think so. I agree with you 100%. And I think Hassan will as well. While we love the AAA games that we grew up on and are still delivering here, like you got your God of Wars, for example, I think there are a lot of games who are just, checking the box, and they are leaving a lot to be desired, and that is just opening a perfect spot for, like you said, the AAAs, the AAs, even the indies, for like one person dev teams can make a successful game that just blows everyone else out of the water. I think that is a really cool place to be in.
Yeah, for sure. So again, like, I think we see a similar trend in movies as well. Like look at Disney, like the Marvel, the Star Warses and everything. Like, they're gonna have to innovate soon, because there are only so many movies you can do a remake of, And I think AAA games as well are quadruple A games that we are apparently seeing now. Like, there are only so many times you can redo Oblivion. Like, sooner or later, and there's only it's not FIFA, but you know what I mean. Like, there's sure people keep buying them, but like at some point you will have to do something new. Like, do we really need another Assassin's Creed? We probably do, but like, can we also do something else? Like, I don't know. So there has to be. They're gonna have, if they want to survive, I think they will have to start to innovate again. I was actually talking about this just before we started talking here. Like maybe they should go back to like when Valve made Portal, or when DICE made Mirror's Edge, like a smaller team within a larger company, like did something really innovative. Like maybe go back to something like that. I don't know. Or they just steal indies ideas. That's also a possibility. But
if you ask me which one's more likely, definitely the latter.
Second, obviously, but I wish that they would invest in more new ideas as well.
Yeah, honestly, it's that. And obviously, I'm not a financial expert, but I feel like that's so minimal risk. If you have a small team, put, I don't know, maybe 12 months and create a real unique game that's innovative, and it's a risk. Whether it succeeds or not, it's brave. I think there should be more projects like that, as opposed to just doing the safe thing, churning out the same game, remaking a game that we just had 2 years ago. I don't know. I feel like what made video games what it is right now is the fact that so many of them were cool. They were brave. They didn't care about fitting into the norms of reality TV or what was standard. And so not all of them were 10 out of 10. Some of them sucked, but it was still fun and interactive. And that, I think, is maybe being missed by a lot of money-hungry people at the top.
Yeah.
So let's get into you getting into the games industry. How does that happen, Anna? How do you go from playing games, you're playing Duck Hunt, you're playing Last of Us, you're playing Portal, and how do you go, I want to make one of these for myself?
That's a really good question. And the answer is actually, I didn't realize that you could work with games for a really long time. So even though I played games since, like I said, like I was a literal toddler, I've been looking back at this. I spent a surprisingly small amount of time thinking about how to make it, who makes these games, and how does that work. Like I had other hobbies, like I was making music, or like I tried. I wasn't very good at it, but like I was focusing on other types of art, types of creative stuff. So I never really thought about game development. So I started studying other things. So I went to uni. I started studying biology for a while. Realized that was not my thing. I wanted to be Jane Goodall, basically, sit in the jungle and look at monkeys. Realized I'm not going to do that. That's not realistic. So I quit my studies, started working, and then like a year later, my mom actually asked me, "But how about you study games instead, because you like games?" And that's like sort of when it clicked, because I'm fortunate enough to live in Sweden, and Sweden already at that time, quite a while ago, we had already quite booming games industry. So we had quite a few AAA companies and so on, and they were doing fairly well for the time. So it's like, yeah, why not? Like let's go for it. So I found a bachelor's degree in computer and system science that also had like game design baked into it. So I started studying that, and I've never looked back ever since.
Wow. First of all, I want to give your mum a massive shout out. Very cool. That is such a, not foreign, but like such a weird concept to me, that your mum actually encouraged you to go into video games, where I know a lot of people can relate here. STEM was such the focus, doctor, scientist, all of this traditional, white collar jobs, as opposed to vocations or jobs, career paths that you as a person personally enjoy. And I think that's so cool that she was your catalyst.
Yeah, like, I mean, I come from, a generation earlier. It's more of a, I'd say, blue collar background, I guess. Like my parents were really the first in our family who really got a higher education, but they're both civil engineers, so like they set the bar quite high from the start in their generation. But then, like I said, I have two older brothers, so I guess they maybe picked up a little bit of that expectation, but it never really had like, you have to do this, like you have to study this. Like sure, there was encouragement and like a little bit of expectation. Okay, you should have a higher education, maybe, like, but still, I think they thought it was better that I studied something and that I was likely to keep going with and like stick to, rather than, flunking out and just working at IKEA for the rest of my life, which they would have been fine with, but like they would have been happy for me, but I think they thought that I could do more with my life. So that's like, okay, but this is a computer and system science degree. It's at least a bachelor's degree. Like if you don't get a good job in games, you can still work with programming somewhere else. I think that was maybe the thinking.
Yeah.
They've always been very supportive, and like they've never been the kind of parents who like, oh, you can only play this much, or like they've never restricted our gaming. They were always like, sure, we should do our homework and we should play sports and stuff like that, but they were never, punishing or taking stuff away, or like, oh, you can only play this much. So, and I really appreciate that. So games were never like bad in my family, but they should be a part of, like, it's like with, eating candy, whatever. Like it's not necessarily bad to eat candy, but you should also have a full diet. Like you should also eat food. So like as long as
moderation,
work and so on, it was fine,
Yeah. Oh, they sound really cool.
Yeah, my parents are pretty cool.
Yeah. Just want to make sure I'm not ignoring Hassan over here. Didn't Ubisoft kill the team behind the Metroidvania Prince of Persia, even though it reviewed really well? I didn't know that. I really liked that game as well. The 2024 Prince of Persia game, I think, The Lost Crown. I don't know if you had a chance to play that, Anna.
No, I haven't. I don't know that story actually, so no.
Oh,
can't speak.
God.
Like if it reviewed well, and
yeah, I know it reviewed well, but I didn't know they killed the team. That's shocking. And also, he's got a shout out for Little Guardsman. If you enjoyed Papers, Please, surrealist fantasy comedy version. I saw Hassan stream that not too long ago. Yeah, very fun game. Very pretty as well. Yeah, I love the comic book art style. And we're gonna get into that with KreatureKind, but yeah, with other games as well, especially in the indie scene. Yeah, I love the use of colors. So you go to uni, you get to study in computer science. How does that translate into becoming your own boss and finding Valiant Game Studio?
Yeah, so I studied that for 3 years, and I need to give a shout out to my student union and my friends that I found at that time, because I had like we got like a reputation at uni, like, oh, we're SP 09 because that's the year we started, and like SP at games. And that was really great. It was really good for advancing me socially, or like getting the confidence and like getting really becoming an adult, I guess. But also the problem was, since my classmates were so great and there were so many of them, I realized, well, we're all going to enter the industry at the same time. If I want a job, I need to get a leg up, and I need to get some, I need to make sure that I get a job. And I'm not going to say that these don't, but, at least I have a better chance than my friends. So first I got myself an internship over a summer, and I started taking some freelance jobs while I was still studying. And then as soon as like we were approaching like our last semester, like the end of the last semester, I started applying for jobs, very like casting a wide net. So that's when I got my job at Paradox as a QA tester, became a manager after about a year. And I sort of kept advancing within QA at Paradox over, like I said, like three and a half years. But I realized, like, because Paradox was growing so fast, I think it was 60 when I started and 300 something when I quit. And I realized I wanted to work at a small company. It was small, like it wasn't for me. So for varying reasons, I decided to quit and go indie, because this was also like quite soon after like games like all the indie darlings like Fez and those kinds of games came out, and like Thomas Was Alone. It was sort of that vibe that year, and I think the indie game movie had quite recently come out and so on. So like it was quite cool to be indie, like if solo indie, you could actually do that because Unity was getting, and Unreal was also getting so accessible. And like this was 10 years ago. That's sort of where we're at right now. But yeah, so I decided to quit my job, go indie, and like for 2 years I had like a sole proprietorship, so just a super small company. But then, yeah, almost 8 years ago, I started Valiant, which is my current company, because I wanted to take a little bit bigger, be able to take in some investment in the company if I want to, and also I didn't want the financial and legal liability if anything goes south. So I wanted to have a proper incorporation just in case. So, and here we are. I'm somehow still doing this, but it's been just in my teeth all the time. Like I said, I'm not very good at this, but I'm quite stubborn. So at least I'm still alive. I'm still here.
I'm still alive. Yeah, words to live by. And I actually think stubbornness is one of the best traits to have when it comes to doing something that's hard and difficult. Going out and making a name for yourself, building games by yourself or in a very small team, incredibly brave. And a lot of time when you do something that's brave, you get a lot of naysayers or like the realists, as they like to call themselves. And it's a bunch of, well, everyone's making a game now. Oh, Vampire Survivors. You can make your own lane, and I think being stubborn is being able to hear and receive that feedback, push back, and go, I would do it anyway. And if I can't do it, I'm gonna learn. If I can't learn, I'm gonna find someone that can, and they'll get them to teach me. I think it's a very good thing that you're stubborn, because you're still the founder of Valiant Game Studio. You've made KreatureKind, which isn't your first game, but is your latest, and hopefully not your last. So let's get into your, what is it called when it's a game? Discography is albums, videography is films, filmography is films, gamography.
Gamography?
Gamography.
Ludography, maybe? Because Ludo, game, whatever.
Oh, that's much better than gamography. Yeah, ludography. Talk me through your ludography, your first game, and let's go all the way chronologically to KreatureKind.
Yeah, so my first game that I made as an indie, that I made myself, basically, was called Midwinter. It's like midwinter, but with a V instead of a W, because it's the Swedish spelling. It's a small point-and-click game based on Swedish folklore. Because I had basically 6 months of runway. That was my budget. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna make something in 6 months. It's gonna be a point-and-click because I hardly knew how to use Unity. So I just took that as sort of my challenge, and I actually made it. I think it took 6 months and 1 week to finish. Wow. Didn't sell, but I was happy. It was my first game. I made it, so still, I guess, an achievement in a way. Then the first game with Valiant is called Pendula Swing, and that's harking back to one of my favorite games being Baldur's Gate 1. Pendula Swing is a top-down RPG-inspired game, but it's non-violent. So the twist of the game is that the world used to be a fantasy, like medieval world, but then the world kept changing. You have already saved the world. You are the hero who defeated the final boss, and now time has progressed. Your partner has died. You've lived a life of isolation for a few years because you're a dwarf, so you're quite old, like you live for a long time. And now it's sort of a fantasy version of the 1920s. So what I wanted to do, or we wanted to do with that game, because I worked with 2 more people on that game, what we wanted to do was basically talk about prejudice, talk about like social injustice and so on, because the 1920s was both a time of very, like, a lot of social progress in many ways, but also injustice still remaining. So we talked like through the stereotypes of fantasy of like, okay, but how did they treat each other? So we used the language of fantasy, which is like, how do you know that an orc is evil? Like, how do you know a goblin is, they're just greedy? And it's because we've been taught that through fantasy. And I wanted to sort of dismantle those prejudices in the fantasy setting and sort of reflect back how we talk about each other, basically, through that. So that was released in 2020, right before the pandemic. Very tough timing. I mean, tough timing, sure. Like the games industry had a boom after that, which was great for in some ways, in some ways not. But for us as a team, it was quite rough because we didn't work in the same place anymore and so on. So So I actually had a co-founder who I did make another game with, a smaller game. But the pandemic sort of took a little bit of a hit on our relationship because we couldn't communicate so well and so on. So we decided to go our separate ways during the beginning of the pandemic. So 2020 was also the year when I started working on KreatureKind. So it's taken 5 years to actually get it to the market. It's from start to finish, but maybe 2.5 years of actual time, basically, because I worked as a consultant, like I said, as well. So it's been a while. But I worked on, I think it's about 50 games in total, because, like I said, I worked as a consultant, and when I worked at Paradox, I worked on basically everything that we made as well. So I've seen quite a few titles at this point.
Yeah, that's an extensive list of games. That's so much experience. I did a little bit of research. You got what, 15 years of experience in the games industry total?
Almost, yeah.
Cool. Pretty damn cool. Yeah, I think when it comes to your first game, even though you say it didn't sell, I think sometimes it's important to just release something. And that goes for all business. Sometimes you can be so caught up in yourself trying to create the perfect product that you either never do it or you see someone else get in there before you. I think sometimes just putting it out, even though it might not be what you want it to be, it can help you find what you do want your next product to be, or B, it will influence what not to do with the next one. So sometimes it's really good to just get the ball rolling, and I think that's a really important lesson for any creative to take on board. I think. Sorry,
yeah, for sure. No, I just agree with you so much, and I think it also gave me a reason to go to conferences. I had a reason, like I could apply for like grants to go to conferences, and I had something to show. It's like I am here because I'm making this game, and then I had learned things from that game when making the next one, and now I have another game in the backlog that, I mean, it's not making a lot of money, but it is generating revenue still. So like there is a little bit of trickles, like. Maybe we're going to get into this when we get into the future, but a tease already, like, because this game, KreatureKind, took 5 years to make, and that's far too long for a small indie. So I'm looking at like maybe doing 6 months projects again, like this, for about like building up more of a portfolio, because that's, to be honest, a more sustainable way of being an indie, like having a lot of small games that maybe they don't even have to be hits, like they don't have to bring in a lot of money, but if you have enough of them, you can probably do okay anyway. So I'm starting to look at that sort of approach instead for the future and see if that's possible instead.
There you go. And yeah, I don't see why it isn't possible. And I feel like because you've had these successful projects, or you shipped these games, you're able to have that mentality of, okay, maybe it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, multiple income streams. Yeah, it's very cool. I like the concept of your 1920s game. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I can check it out. It's on Steam and on Switch. So
I would love to check that out. Oh, it's on Switch. Okay, I'm gonna check it out. What was it called again?
Pendula Swings, like pendulum, but in plural. Or no, singular, plural, whatever.
Yep. Pendula Swing. Okay,
Pendula Swing.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna find that game really quickly and put it in the chat for everyone as well.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I've been getting into D&D since the pandemic, which is kind of funny, but that the whole concept of that reminds me of essentially changing typical fantasy storytelling and flipping it on its head, like getting into the stereotypes. Why are they stereotypes? Have we just been absorbing what older people have been telling us all our lives? It's very cool. I like thought-provoking stuff like that.
I appreciate that. And like I'm a huge Tolkien nerd as well, but Tolkien is not, without its controversies and like problematic traits as well. So like I just wanted to address that. Like I have this deep love of fantasy since I was a kid, but we should also be able to talk about the things that we love. And like fantasy and RPGs are in some ways inherently problematic. So we should probably talk about that as a culture.
100%. Okay, let's get into KreatureKind. What were some of your inspirations while building that game? You said it took you 5 years total to go from ideation to market. But yeah, tell me a little bit about your inspirations and some of the obstacles that you overcame along those years.
So I'd say I'm not trying to hide that one of the main inspirations is Slay the Spire. Like it is a roguelite, deck builder, card battler. So it's hard not to be inspired by that game. Also, Monster Train has been an inspiration. It was an inspiration early on. But also looked at games like Monster Prom and, of course, Undertale. Like, how do you make a game that's not just about killing people necessarily? So it's been a little bit of everything. I wanted to make like a card game, a card battler that's a little bit more approachable, a little bit more, fun, tongue-in-cheek, colorful, wholesome. Because I think, and I hope there is an audience for that as well. Like, I think the card game roguelite genre has exploded so much in the past few years, and I think that's great. And there are a lot of really good games in that space. But a lot of them are violent and they're kind of grim dark, which is fine. But I think that means there's also potential for other types of games in that genre. So that's what I wanted to explore. And I wanted to explore, like, can we make a game that's not about killing things? Can we make a card game about talking, about discussions instead of killing? And yeah, it's up to you to tell me if I managed or not. But at least that's what I wanted to go for.
I think 100% there's a market for that type of game. And that is a question I actually had for you. I think all of your games have the quality of being non-violent. That is obviously intentional. What was your reasoning behind that, going a completely non-violent route? And is that something you intend to continue throughout your career?
So far, I don't have any desire to make violent games. I was actually kind of deliberately taking a violent ban for my t-shirt today because I do like violent games. I do like violent music and other types of media. It's not like I don't think that there's a place for that, and I play, shooters and so on as well. But I think that there's also space, and honestly unexplored space, for non-violent games because, in my opinion, like adult games, for example, like we usually say, if it's violent or if there's, I don't know, sex or something, like then it's for adults, and like then it's for grown-ups. But I think that's so reductive of what the experience of being an adult is. I think that we need more games about, relationships, tough relationships, about getting older, about maybe having kids, if that's the story you want to tell. Like there's so many other things that we can talk about. In my case, maybe like the story isn't deep in that way, but I still want to tell a story about like building a grassroots movement and like coming together and like the power of discussing things and instead of solving it in a violent way. Because I think also in our society, like in media, we always talk about like, oh, there's the big bad, and if we kill the big bad, then everything is going to be all right. But that's not the way the world works. So we are not giving ourselves, like our common, everyone else around us, we're not giving each other the tools to actually deal with what we're seeing in the world right now. Because if you don't like the politics, you can't just, some people have tried to shoot our politicians, but I don't think that's actually the right way to go necessarily. I think it's better if we actually understand the system better and try to improve it. Or overhaul the system. It's not about people, it's about the system. So that's what I wanted to address with this game. And I think like the more games that deal with a bit more complex topics, maybe the better prepared we will be to understand the world around us and improve it. So we'll see if that works. But I also think that games honestly can be a force for good. I think games do have a purpose as just entertainment, and that's fine. There should be games that are just escapism, and that's completely fine. But I think that games also need to take the responsibility of actually educating our players and be a part of the global discussion, because we have so much power, like to just make the world a better place. Like I think it's like 3 billion something people play games, digital games around the world. And if we can actually say something to them, I think we kind of have to, like, because the world looks the way it does. And I think we kind of have to try to make everything that we can to be part of making positive change in the world.
That's beautifully said. Yeah, absolutely. I think first of all, there is absolutely a space for peaceful games, and I really like what you said about not reducing the adult experience to just war and violence and sex and stuff like that. I think there is a lot more to life like that. And firstly, obviously a lot of games do, capitalize off violence and fantasy and all of that stuff that you can't get away with in real life. So it does equally leave just as big a space for games that do aim for a bit more peaceful, wholesome activity, which is why you see a lot of Sims do really well, because they focus on something that's not necessarily saturated, but heavily focused on. Is it a niche? Yeah, maybe, but I think there will be just as many people interested. I think they just need to understand that that's accessible, that exists. And then secondly, I do think what you said was very educational about the lesson that a lot of people take from video games or from any sort of story is, if you get rid of the big bad, everything becomes good. And as you rightly said, that's not how it works, because systematic problems exist that prevent that from happening, and the ideation of oppression and evil continues even after the figurehead goes. So I think actually your stance is a lot more powerful than I even realized at the beginning of this convo. So hopefully, over the course of your career, with more games that you put out, maybe that message will spread wider and wider. You get more players and more people understanding the message behind the games that you're putting out.
I hope
because
so.
that's absolutely,
and you can share it with me. Share the message further.
Absolutely, we'll the megaphone. Yeah, absolutely. I think there is absolutely something in the mentality or the thought process of maybe we could talk these problems away, as opposed to going straight to war. I mean, it's a big extreme. So with KreatureKind, why don't you tell us all about the synopsis of that game? You spoke a bit about the inspiration. What about KreatureKind? What sets that apart from Slay the Spire, for example?
So when it comes to synopsis, so basically what happened in the world of KreatureKind is that magic is disappearing because everyone has been using too much mana. So it's sort of a fantasy world, but it's very tongue-in-cheek. Like, there are monsters, like some are from folklore, some are more like cryptids, like American cryptids, like Mothman and Goatman, and some of them are really silly, and some of them are like, and there are all like more modern than you would usually see them. So they have smartphones and laptops and stuff. So I want it to be like, it's a little bit funny, like it's a version of not even fantasy, folklore, monster game. But like I said, like they've all been using mana for silly stuff. Like they're flushing their toilet back home because they forgot, or they're lifting their painting gear or whatever. So you meet them and you try to convince them to conserve mana, basically. So you there are 7 magical factions in this world. So they cast magic, cast their spells through art, basically. So one is visual arts, one is cooks, one is programming, and so on. So you meet all of these 7 factions, and you want to convince them to join your side. So when you reach full standing with them, you have their sort of blessing, and they vouch to save mana or save magic. So that's sort of your goal. And there are also 7 playable characters, 1 for each magical faction. And they fit into sort of the holy trinity of RPGs. So you have up to 3 characters that join your side, which is a little bit different from other similar games, that you have 3 playable characters in each encounter out of 7. And you have to sort of balance how they work together. And you can sort of find synergies between these characters in how they work. So some work better together than others do, and because some are more support, some are more tanky, some more DPS. It's not damage, but etc. So like the base is quite similar to Slay the Spire, for example. Like, it's cards, and you attack, quote unquote, but it's much more about like there is a story, even if it's very lightweight. It's I try to keep it or like tongue in cheek and funny in the presentation. And like I said, the whole thing with the how you build your team is very I guess unique, and you will also, of course, have to find the synergies and find the balance in your team. So I hope to give hopefully you'll find that it's approachable even if you're a new player, but you will still get a challenge even if you're a more advanced player as well.
Nice, yeah. So there's a learning curve, but it's also very easy to access, easy to pick up and play.
That's been my goal, and I've been working hard on making it as accessible as possible. But it is hard. Like some concepts are new, and because it's non-violent, I realized, which was a learning experience for me as well, we don't really have a language for talking about games that are non-violent when it's still using similar mechanics. So, for example, I had to find a word that wasn't health points or hit points. And it was like, but I want it to be HP. And for a while, it was more about like making characters happy. So it was happiness points. But then I sort of moved away from that thematically. So then I had to find another word. I was like, but there is nothing else that starts with an H. Maybe it shouldn't have to be HP. So, it was just a whole thing. And now it's hypothesis points, which it's a mouthful, but it doesn't matter. I want it to be HP because teaching the player yet another word, it was enough already. Like it was so much like people don't understand. It's been a challenge to explain all the concepts when I couldn't just say it's like thorns or spikes. Like I can't say that, but like that's how it works. So yeah.
That's quite interesting. That sounds like quite a massive obstacle that you had to overcome. So obviously with HP, not even basic, but like something that's so commonplace, having to kind of filter that through your mind and come up with an alternative explanation or meanings behind those letters. What was the toughest one that you were able to translate? What did you end up translating it to, and why?
The one that I'm still struggling with is actually, I'm calling it prep. It's the one that is sort of like spike or thorns. Like when someone attacks you, you give the same amount of damage back. Right. And still I'm getting questions on Steam, like, how does this work? And I'm like trying to explain it in game. But I now I updated the icon and I'm trying to explain it a little bit better. So I'm calling it prep because you're preparing like your comeback, basically. It's not perfect. Some might have to change it again. We'll see. Another that works a little bit better is like it's a similar effect, but if you put an effect on you, and when you get attacked, you send the same card back, the whole card with effects and everything. And that's called a clapback. That seems people appear to understand a little bit better. So it's just, I don't know.
That's quite interesting. I mean, obviously clapback is quite popular on social media, so I guess especially with the modern crowd would understand that quite easily. So maybe, I don't know, maybe that's somewhere to pull some inspiration from. That's so fascinating. Like it's not even I completely understand your thought process as well, as going like you want to be as wholesome as possible, even in the terms of the explanation and the terminology, which is so cool, and I respect that. I mean, I think for me, I wouldn't even think HP as a fighting game associated term or like a violent associated term. I'm just like, oh, that's health. Okay. So
yeah, but health, you don't need health if you're not damaging someone,
exactly.
Like if you're hurting someone, right? So that's why I had to like, it can't be called that, can it? So yeah.
I mean, just massive shout outs to you, because I can see how much time you've spent thinking of every intricate detail of this game. And I want to first of all say congrats on releasing KreatureKind. That came out in April, I believe.
Yeah, late April on Steam, but we are releasing on consoles now in late June, on June 27th, on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S.
Oh my goodness, that's not long at all.
No.
Within the month.
Yeah. That's why I'm a little bit stressed. No, it's fine. But
I think there's. I would like to hope that that's a lot of nervous energy and excitement. Obviously, you know yourself more, but it's a very big, important time, isn't it, for your game to be launching on multiple platforms, especially the iconic PlayStation and Xbox platforms. What is one thing you're very proud of when it comes to the creation of KreatureKind?
honestly, that it is out, that I did it. And I say I should also give a shout out to everyone who has helped out in this game, because I have been working with freelancers, and like, especially for the art. So I'm really happy that you said that you liked art, and I do as well, because it's been a privilege to work with such great artists. And I worked with a writer who helped out a little bit with some of the writing, and I had an intern for a little bit who helped out with some of the game design and the programming. So that's been a huge privilege, and I'm really, really happy that I could do that. But like I said, like, it has been a rough journey, and getting funding turned out to be very hard. I didn't, in the end, really succeed. So actually being able to finish this game, I'm just really happy that it was possible in the end. So, and I hope that people like it. That's all I want. Like, it's one thing to release the game, and then like all you can do is like just hope that people understand what you want to make, and that it's, even if one person like feels that this was the game for them and they feel seen or whatever, then it's all worth it. Because like, I hope you can see from my art, or the art that's in the game, for example, that diversity, for example, and inclusion is very important to me. And I want people to feel like they belong playing games, and they belong in the games industry. And I want to reflect that, both like how I want to invite people into the industry, and also in the art of the game and in the characters in the game and so on as well. So if people also feel that they are represented and like they feel welcome, that would also make it all worth it. So long answer to your question, but yeah.
Not long at all. I think it was detailed. Yeah, I completely get you as well. You know, the resonance is very important, and I'm sure there'll be people who feel seen when playing your game. And it is a weird one because of how the industry is. Once you release your game, it's not done. Like, you got updates to do, you know, all the time. You got feedback. You got to make sure that people are enjoying the game, or you know, putting the hours in. So it always feels like the work is never done. But pivoting off of that, what is the future for Valiant Game Studio? And can you tell us a little bit about your next big project, which will hopefully not take 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, but like you said, like, the work is never done on this game. So as long as people keep playing it, I want to keep updating it. Hopefully release some free content updates, and also there are a few bugs still, and I'm churning through them. Hopefully nothing too bad, but if I find anything, or if people report anything serious, obviously I'm going to fix it as soon as possible. And like I said, keep working on content updates and so on. We are looking at other platforms as well. I can't say anything yet, but we want to be where the players are. And like I said, like, apparently kids don't use mouse, like they don't use PCs anymore. So like touchpads, like being on mobile platforms would be really cool. We'll see if we manage to do that. No promises, but we're at least playing with the idea right now. And then of course, upcoming game, like there's going to be other games, hopefully, from Valiant. And like I said, I'm looking more to try and make shorter games now for a little bit. I want to be able to give my older games some love as well. We'll see if that's financially responsible, because, you know, you have to sort of see a return of investment from the time you put into anything. But I can't say yet what the next game is going to be, but have some ideas. Yeah, I hope people are going to like it.
It sounds like you're cooking. You've got some ideas brewing, and I cannot wait to hopefully have you back on the Streamcast to talk about the next Valiant Game Studio game. I cannot wait.
I would love to be back. So yeah, let's set something up.
Let's go. All right. Thank you so much, Anna, for featuring on the Streamcast. We appreciate you greatly. Why don't you promote your games all over again and tell the people where they can follow you?
Absolutely. So KreatureKind is out on PC right now, so you can check it out primarily on Steam. You can also pick it up on itch.io if you prefer that. It's going to be out on Xbox Series X and S, as well as PlayStation 5 on June 27th. So check that out. It does actually, I mean, it's a cliche, but it really means everything. If like any wish list, any, like if you want to check it out, then I really appreciate it. And if you leave a review, I really appreciate that as well, because it does mean the world to a small indie like me. It's not just hyperbole. I'm right now primarily on Blue Sky because it's the least terrible social media platform right now, in my opinion. I do a little bit of TikTok maybe, and I try to not be on X if I don't have to. But yeah, there's Facebook and Instagram, but primarily Blue Sky. And I have a Discord as well. So if you go to valiant.se/Discord, that's a link directly to our Discord, and you can find me if you want to have a chat with me.
Absolutely. Sounds sick. And after you go and support Anna following on all the platforms that Anna's on, why don't you also do the same for us here at Streamcast? You can, first of all, right, give us a thumbs up, because that helps us out greatly for discoverability. And then, if you're not already, subscribe to the Streamcast, because last time I checked, 80% of viewers are not subscribed, which is like nice that we're reaching a new audience. I love that. But we also want to retain you. We want repeat business. So please subscribe and hit the bell so you get all of our videos as soon as they go live. We do episodes every fortnight, Monday from 7:30 UK time. And on our second YouTube channel, we do live streams, which we will be doing in about half an hour, 9 p.m. UK time. I'm actually going to start the first 3 hours of the Lies of P DLC, which is based off Pinocchio, which I would say is wholesome. The game's not wholesome, though. And nothing I say on that stream will be wholesome, but I love that game. So make sure you come through to our second YouTube channel or our Twitch, twitch.tv/Streamcast TV. And this podcast will be available wherever you get your podcast from about 24 hours time here on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and a bunch of other platforms like Castbox. But I've just been distracted by Hassan's You don't know that, Hassan. Yes, I am. Once again, thank you so much, Anna, for hopping on the Streamcast. Congrats once again for releasing KreatureKind, and double congrats for getting that out on Xbox and PS5 this month, the 27th of June.
Yes.
You are very welcome. And on that note, please head on over to our second YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Streamcast Gaming, or our Twitch channel, because we'll be doing Lies of P, the first 3 hours of the DLC, in about 30 minutes. But until then, take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Stay safe. We'll see you on the next Streamcast.